Once upon a time in a faraway land, there was a wondrous river. It wound through a giant bamboo marsh and shimmered with 1,000 tiny lights, each one sparkling like a fallen star. And at night, when the moon hung heavy and round in the sky, the river's glimmering became even brighter, more brilliant. For every night, without fail, an old woman named Temmie would come to the riverbank with a large iron bucket and a lantern shaped like a star. She would gently lower the star-shaped lantern into the water, and the moment its metal frame touched the river, its glow would ignite, chasing away the darkness and attracting all manner of fish. Then Temmie would fish until sunrise, and afterwards return home with enough fish to feed her village for days. Now, this went on for many years. But one night when Temmie arrived at the river, she found that the lantern's glow was dim and flickering. And no matter how much she tried, she couldn't get it to burn brightly. At first, the fish noticed nothing. They happily swam up to the lantern's glow. But then they saw that its light wasn't strong enough and swam away again, deeper into the river. Temmie tried everything she could think of. She polished the lantern until it gleamed like a mirror, and oiled the wick until it was shiny and black. Yet still the star-shaped lantern refused to burn brightly, and soon the riverbank grew dark. No longer did fish leap and flash their scales in the starlight. No longer did dragonflies skim the surface, their wings catching fire in the lantern's glow. Soon the whole riverbank fell silent, and Temmie sat down on the bank feeling utterly hopeless because she knew that if the lantern didn't start shining again, the fish would die of cold and hunger, and her village would have no hope of surviving the winter. So Temmie felt the weight of the entire village on her shoulders. But then she looked at the river flowing past her. Even though the lantern wasn't glowing, the water still shimmered with starlight just like before. In fact, looking closely, she realized that the starlight was stronger than ever. That's because this was a very special river. And even though the star-shaped lantern had lost its glow, the river itself still reflected the starlight from above. And so Temmie got an idea. She hurried home, grabbed some paper, cut out a shape of a star, and made a small lantern out of it. And when it was ready, she ran back to the river, lit a candle, put the candle inside the paper star, and made one final lantern just like the one she used before. Then Temmie did something very strange. She lowered both the paper lantern and the star-shaped lantern into the river, and they floated together downstream. For a while, Temmie watched the two lanterns bobbing along, and then suddenly something happened. The starlight in the river seemed to grow brighter, and the paper lantern began to glow, reflecting the starlight from the river's surface. And because the starlight was so bright, the star-shaped lantern began to sparkle too. Temmie looked all around her, but there were no stars nearby. The sky was completely clear. So where did the starlight come from? Well, it came from this river. As the paper lantern continued to reflect the river's glow, the star-shaped lantern grew brighter and brighter. Before long, it was shining with all its might, as though the river itself was feeding its flame. And Temmie understood that this was happening because the river loved her and her village. It wanted to help us, just as the fish helped her light the way with their scales, just as the dragonflies helped her chase away the darkness with their wings. Just as the stars helped light her way with their distant glow, the river was doing the same thing. It was reflecting the starlight from above and sharing its own inner glow. That's why the river is so important. And that's why we must always protect rivers and all waterways, because they reflect the light of the world around them and teach us that sometimes we need to look beyond our own problems to see what else is shining around us. And that's exactly what Temmie did. Instead of focusing on the fact that the star-shaped lantern wouldn't light, she focused on the fact that the paper lantern was floating down the river. And by letting go of one problem, she discovered another solution. And after that, Temmie fished every night from the riverbank, and every morning she shared her catch with the whole village. And as long as the starlight shone in the sky, the river never stopped shimmering, full of fish and reflections and warm, gentle light. And so the people in the village prospered and lived happy lives, all thanks to the river. And that's all because Timmy learned that light isn't just something we find, it's also something we make. We can light our own lanterns with the things that shine in our lives, with our dreams and hopes and reflections and memories. And that's what the river taught Timmy, and that's what the river can teach us too. Sometimes all it takes is a little paper lantern to reflect all the starlight within reach. But anyway, that's enough lessons for today. Do you remember what the river taught Timmy? What do you think it means to reflect the starlight within reach? What things in your life can you reflect on? Perhaps these are hopes for the future, or perhaps they're memories of the past. You know, sometimes we focus on the fact that our lanterns are growing dim when all around us there is already plenty of starlight shining. The trick is learning how to reflect it. And when you learn this, you'll be able to light your own lantern, even if it seems like all hope is gone. So take a moment to look around you. What starlight can you find? What reflections can you see? Because even if your lantern's flame seems weak, the starlight within reach will always be there, waiting for someone to reflect it. Thank you for watching.